1 point gained on the top, but almost certainly 2 points dropped overall. Arsenal drawing once again away from home at Fulham. A net game of 1 point, but in the context of the league, simply not good enough. This is the Arsenal Reaction Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal transfer. No, it's not. What am I talking about? It's the Arsenal Reaction Show. It's the show, of course, that joins you every single morning at 8 a.m. But today, the morning show is all about the game before, which is Arsenal War 1. Well, it's just one, isn't it? Just Arsenal 1, Fulham 1. Really disappointing result, really frustrating end to the game, really agonising moment for Arsenal and really frustrating. Yes, it's better than the result last season. Sure, it's a net gain on last season's fixtures, but I don't really care too much about that, to be honest, because, you know, it was all about getting another victory and adding a fifth win in a row, and an offside, of course, preventing Arsenal from claiming all three of those points as well and changing the context of the conversation, of course, entirely. Really, really, really gutting. Really gutting. But that is the reality, and we're going to discuss that. Also, in part two, we're going to be getting some of your calls on. We're going to be running through my thoughts in part one relatively quickly, because I want to try and get as many people on for their opinions. We usually do these phone-in shows after a disappointing result, just to kind of get and allow something of a therapy session sometimes, which I always thought was important. But good morning to those joining us in the chat. Tom, Blackshine, Paul, we've got Kim, we've got Steve, we've got Rowan, we've got Boss, we've got Natty, Franklin, Chris, Joey, PW, we've got Paul and Maximius, we've got James and Barry, we've got Chima, we've got Stevie and Rob, we've got Matt, we've got Grantley Booze, we've got Shari, we've got Arasilki and Temi and Gooner 76. And plenty more of you guys and girls as well. Appreciate your time. If you could ever be so kind to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show, that would also be really appreciated. Right, let's jump into today's slide, shall we? And I'll be leaving a link to the phone-in part just before we go to part two for you guys to start queuing up. It is first come, first serve, so you'll need to be quick. Fulham's low block holding firm against Arsenal yesterday. 1-1 on the day. Of course, a Raul Jimenez goal, enough to secure a point for Fulham, who never really offered much else in the game. Once that goal had gone in, it was very much a case of let's see what we can claim and let's see if Arsenal can break us down, which they successfully did on two occasions, just the second occasion, of course, not proving to be legal at the time. But a low block, holding firm, and Arsenal being unable in this case to deal with it. And the lineup, I think, has been what has caused the most controversy amongst supporters, the most kind of retrospective thought processes. Arsenal still without Gabriel, still without Calafiori. Of course, they are without Ben White, we know as well. Miles Lewis-Skelly's come back from injury. He was on the bench. Timber playing left back. Partey playing right back. Jorginho and Rice in the midfield. Ødegaard, Saka, Trossard and Havertz was the front four. And despite dominating the game, obviously, dominating possession, dominating pretty much every single metric on the day, it was not enough to dominate the points. Arsenal ended the game having conceded just 2 shots, 2 of those on target, one of them hitting the back of the net, 12 shots taken, 4 shots on target, 67% possession. A very dominant display, but not one, sadly, that led to anything more than the point. It was one chance, one goal. It was a very good finish, but it's one where you look defensively and you think, one pass in behind. It gave me flashbacks to that Liverpool game when Liverpool scored their second goal, that one pass in behind, and just very frustratingly and poorly defended. But again, another good finish. I mean, the finish is excellent from Raul Jimenez, and Raya can do little to get across that side of the ball hitting the corner of the net. But again, it's one pass in behind that's kind of wrong foot Kivior. The movement's very good from Jimenez. I think it's more about the movement and the finish from Jimenez than necessarily the poor defending, but there is poor defending, don't get me wrong. But I thought Jimenez in the pass was excellent to let that goal in. And it was frustrating because usually you can kind of tell what kind of game it's going to be from Arsenal within the first few minutes. And based upon how we started the game, I thought it was going to be a good day. We started the game very dominant. We were creating opportunities. We were getting in behind. We were causing problems. We were getting set pieces. We were getting chances. And this knocked us somewhat. And it gave Fulham more reason to dig in and to play that counter-attacking style. This was completely different to the game from last season. You know, if you templated this game onto last season, it was entirely different. Fulham were nowhere near as threatening, and Arsenal were much, much better than they were last year. But it still proved to be very, very frustrating indeed. And Saliba ultimately got us back into the game with a header that, again, an offside call being very, very close indeed. And it was proven to be onside. But Havertz should be scoring. You know, Havertz should score in the first instance. It shouldn't be a case of Saliba having to knock the ball in. Havertz should score the opportunity that he gets in the first instance. But Saliba, of course, gets there, and it is another goal, you know, from a set piece that gives Arsenal that foothold. I'm not one that's really kind of doing the whole Arsenal relying too much on set pieces. They're a part of the game. And of course, when you go up against a team that are using a low block to defend deep against you, slow set pieces can be huge kind of options for you to beat those low blocks. And that is really a big question about what goes on in that side and what goes on from kind of a thought process of the tactics about how you deploy your team and what you want to get from when you go up against a team that can defend as deep as Fulham did. But you cannot be offside here. It is so poor from Martinelli. And I'm just talking about this instance, this moment. I'm not talking about him overall. We can have a bigger context and conversation about that if you want in part 2. But I'm just talking about this moment right here. When you're a wide player and you can see all the way down the line, you have to be onside. You have to be onside. And he's not. And it's just unforgivable. It's a brilliant cross from Martinelli to Saka. It's a brilliant delivery. Something that we haven't seen enough from Martinelli in his game is those types of crosses. But that moment to not be onside is just unforgivable. It's just unforgivable. And incredibly frustrating. Really frustrating. And Havertz and Trossard as well, invisible basically in this game, really offered very, very little in this game. Not stepping up, not enough energy, not enough participation, not enough direction. Really poor from both of them, I thought, on the day, Havertz and Trossard in particular. Because I don't want it to be like Martinelli. It's all on Martinelli. It's not. He was on the pitch for, 15 minutes or so. You've got other players that are on the pitch for, 3-4 times longer than him. And you can't overlook those performances because Havertz and Trossard offered next to nothing in the game. And again, Gabriel Jesus has a huge chance and just cowers from it. Absolutely. It's been an issue that I've been talking about with Jesus for a long time. It's this lack of application. It's this lack of bravery. It's a lack of confidence for sure. But the bench is offering like next to nothing for us. Yes, Martinelli created that chance coming off the bench. Sure, that's the only real moment. Ethan Nwaneri, I thought, on the ball offers something, but he hasn't got enough time in games to do enough. He's not being given enough time. If you're bringing on Jesus before you're bringing on Nwaneri, I've got a question mark about that. I think it was the right decision to take Havertz off because Havertz was offering very little, but keep Trossard on, move him into the middle instead of Jesus because Jesus is offering nothing. I know Trossard wasn't offering anything, but I'm more inclined to believe that Trossard will give us something than what I am from Jesus. The way in which he missed this opportunity, all he needs to do is be a bit more confident, go for the ball, not wait for the fact he's waiting for the ball to drop is it stinks of a player without any confidence right now, any confidence whatsoever. And it leaves Arsenal obviously in a situation where they're now third in the table. They're 2 points behind Chelsea. They are 6 points behind Liverpool. We've got a game in hand. And of course, somehow, even though the mood I know is very low, they can go to the end of the year if we were to beat Everton and Ipswich and Palace and Brentford, which is not guaranteed at all. You'd still end the year with being in a better points position than we were last season, believe it or not. Still seems mad to me, but that is the reality. But these games we've got coming up at home to Everton, who would have more than a week of rest, whereas Arsenal would have played 3 games in the time that they've played none. 3 games in the time that they've played none come into the Emirates. So they'll be very well rested for that game. You've then got this Monaco game, of course, in midweek, which Arsenal have to win to give themselves the top chance of finishing in the top 8 of the Champions League places. You've then got next week Palace, of course, as well. And then you've got Palace again in the league away from home, which is never an easy game for us. Never, ever, ever an easy game for us. So it's going to prove to be, I think, very difficult. So I want your thoughts. I'm going to put the link, the StreamYard link, into the chat box in there. I mean, if you disagree with what I'm saying, if you agree with what I'm saying, I've got 45 minutes, and I need to be off by 9 without fail. But I want your thoughts a part 2. We often do this. We often give people the opportunity to come onto the show when we don't win games, because it acts as something of a therapy session and something of an opportunity to get a wider range of understandings, a wider range of viewpoints. So I want your viewpoint. I want your reasoning. I want your knowledge. So if you are indeed over the age of 18, which you need to be, you need to have a webcam as well. Because of course I need to be able to check you over the age of 18. And if I don't think you are, you won't be on. But yes, please do make sure that you are joining us, giving us your thoughts. We'll be going through some of your questions as well in the chat box and more. So let's go to part 2, your questions and your phone calls right after this. Okay, part 2 of the show. We jump into the chat box. Of course, I'm not going to skimp out on the advent calendar, so don't think we're going to do that. It's Monday 9th. Is my morning going to be kicking off better than my afternoon was yesterday? Yes, it is. We've got a lovely little dairy milk. Fantastic stuff. And today's kit for December's advent kit calendar, of course, an FC Copenhagen shirt today, continuing our theme of how many non-Arsenal shirts we can wear in a month on stream. So, yes, get that quickly out of the way. So I feel the mood isn't in as jovial of a mood as it usually is in these mornings. Let's get our first caller on. It's Temi, joins us. How you doing, mate? You good? You well? Take yourself off mute and I'll be able to hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
How you feeling, mate?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Good stuff. Give me your thoughts on where you're thinking and what you're thinking.
The last time I said let's have a Dubai session. This time, maybe Arteta has to eat like half of the steak.
Only
like
half the steak. Yeah.
The other 23
if there was
players
only a gap in the schedule where we could even afford to go to Dubai, there's not going to be this season. There's not going to be that opportunity. Why didn't we win yesterday, Temi?
For me, I think it's the recruitment. I think is starting to bite into our season really, because we signed Sterling on loan, and that was it for the attack,
Yeah.
And I feel it's not enough. It's not even close, I wanted a striker and a left winger, because Martinelli's issues had existed since last season. So people complaining about it this season, it's actually funny to me, because everything that's happening now, we've seen it. Clearly something is wrong somewhere. I don't know if it's
it's not just this season, is it? It's like this season and last season have been
maybe it's his mentality or so, whatever it is. I don't know, but it's just not pulling up trees like it was 2 seasons ago. So for me, in the summer, they should have signed maybe a striker and a winger, because even Havertz, as much as we like to support him, let's face it, he's still not at the level of like an Isak or an Haaland or a Haaland or a Salah, So I feel like it's the recruitment that is finally coming home to roost.
I think that the question will always be is who, isn't it? Like, who would you have signed in the summer? Because
Yeah.
that whenever I have conversations with people about, I agreed in January we need to sign an attacking player. There's no debate about that at all. And I talked about this on Twitter this morning with Rohan, who's obviously on the Cannon podcast with Alex and Different Knock. And I said to him, I was like, Jesus coming off the bench at the moment is offering us jack, like absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
He is offering us nothing.
Jesus right now, it reminds me of Carlos Villa. Like the last 6 months of Carlos Villa at Arsenal.
I mean,
He
you said the
wasn't
last
doing
6 months. I don't know
anything.
really. I mean, I liked Carlos Villa as a cult hero player, but I don't know what he offered us at all.
Yeah,
really,
exactly. He wasn't doing anything.
No.
Nothing. It's personally, I feel like they should, if they can't sell him in January, they should terminate his contract. Like just go. It's done. It's actually done at the club. Really, for me, he needs to find a new place. Maybe it's Saudi Arabia or Brazil or somewhere. I don't know, but he's done professionally at Arsenal for me.
Give me some names then of players that you think. I mean, there's 2 questions here. There's one question which is who should we have signed in the summer that you think was available, and if you can say you don't know, which is also fine. And who would you like to see in January? Of course, that would change things for us.
I was wondering, is it illegal for the fans of a club to?
I'm always comfortable when someone starts a question with, "Is it illegal?" That's always going to put me in a really good state of comfortability. So go on, Timmy. Ask me the question.
The club's Twitter page has about 20 million fans. If all of us contributed £5, we could buy it. I don't know what.
Everyone sends in a fiver, and we can.
I mean, I would literally give them £50. It will cost me a lot because naira to pound, crazy. But I would give money. Just get me a great. I don't like all these players I'm seeing. It's not even about dedication now. It's actually about talent. Because what I've realized is that we only have one really good player in attack right now, and it's Saka. So anytime the chips are down for him, it's almost like we don't exist up front, really. So it's for me. If they had gotten Sesko, I probably would have been happy with it because he would have offered something different, or just anyone really. Because I don't like what I'm seeing in attack. We are not. It feels like once we get to that 18-yard box, we don't really know what to do. And anything
we're lacking. We're lacking edge. We're lacking clinicalness. We're lacking invention in the final third from open play. I feel like this set piece thing that while I don't agree that we're reliant on set pieces, because I think saying that our team are reliant on set pieces when you've scored
that's it.
Goals in 5 games, it's a bit much.
So what I was even trying to point out is that every time I look at our attack now, there are some kinds of goals that rely on teamwork, right? But there are some kinds of goals that rely on the individual to do something you don't expect in the box, like maybe a tight a shot from a tight angle, a long range strike. It doesn't look like anyone can do that right now apart from Saka up front. And that's something that worries me because you can't always walk the ball into the net.
No,
it won't work every time.
Well, ironically, so what happens now is shot that Miko Moreno had against Sporting that led to a knock-in for Trossard.
Exactly.
Like, those moments we don't seem to be doing enough of sometimes. I think we had shots that against Leno yesterday. They were all really tame. He wasn't really tested beyond, the set piece we had, and of course the cross from Martinelli to Saka, which was offside. But yeah, I get where you're coming from, Temi, and I think that this bluntness in attack is a concern. But thank you so much, mate, for ringing in. I really appreciate your time as always, and nice to speak with you again.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Temi. Chris is going to be up next. Fingers crossed. Let's get Chris on the show. Chris, man, how you doing? You good? You well? Take yourself off mute. Oh, can't hear us. Okay. Is he back? Is he back? How you doing, Chris?
I'm back. I'm
good
fine.
Stuff.
I hope you can hear me, Tom.
I can hear you.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Tell me where your head's at.
The game was disappointing. I saw the lineup yesterday, and I knew we were going to concede because while I understand that was a similar backline to the Liverpool game, just except Saliba wasn't there, it was just Gabriel and Kivio. But I knew it's that defense against a Marco Silva. We were going to concede. It was inevitable.
Only
But
had two
then,
shots. 2 shots they had.
yes, they had 2 shots. I knew that they had 2 shots. But Marco Silva is such a genius, and he's a manager I respect so much.
Me too.
Him and Thomas Frank, those guys are deadly. Put them in a Tottenham setting, and I'm afraid. But back to the game. We have an issue we are yet to solve against teams that played mid-block. And we saw that last season. We saw that against Chelsea when we drew 2-2. We saw that against Fulham. We saw that against Bayern Munich. We have an issue dealing with mid-block teams. And we didn't solve that issue last season. Of course, yes, there was no right-up option to do that with. But I believe we could have gone for somebody like Eberechi Eze, for instance. That gives
Right.
us something. Yes, that gives us something else to throw in there. If he was on the bench and you are taking, let's say you're taking Odegaard out, you keep bringing him in. That creates something more of a scenario for us. And then in the attack, we have always had a Martinelli issue ever since Xhaka left. The team has been unbalanced, and Arteta is misprofiling Martinelli, and it's not his fault. It's not his fault.
That's a really
But
good
then
point, actually.
yeah, but I believe that as
kind of the point where Xhaka left and the point where Martinelli's form really dipped, and there is definitely a crossover of those two things. So I think that's a fair point.
yeah, exactly. And then, well, I believe as a player in today's world, you just have to be versatile. You just have to pick up responsibilities, and you just have to improve on yourself. And that is what Martinelli is not doing. Of course, we know there are instances this is not how I naturally play. But sometimes, for God's sake, Martinelli cut inside the box. Martinelli take a good shot. Martinelli make decisions. You can't repeat the same mistakes over and over again in bloody hell games, literally games upon games upon games. Something is wrong. He either needs a competition or we need to do something about him.
Yeah, I think
believe
right
if we
now
bring
the Martinelli discussion is one that obviously we've had on the channel before. I have said, and I'm on the record with my position being that the left-hand side I think does need an upgrade, and if you're going to upgrade one of the two, I think you keep Trossard and you replace Martinelli, because I think Trossard would be a better foil to an upgrade of a left winger than what Martinelli would be. The issue for me with Martinelli has always been the decision making and the final pass or the final ball. He's really good at getting into dangerous situations. He's just not very good at making the right choice when he gets there. And that's my problem that's been there with Martinelli ever since, he had a fantastic season in 22-23 where you think he got 15 goals and 5 assists, and Xhaka was obviously having his best season in that season as well for us. And I think definitely a link there. But it's just we look so blunt from open play at times, and I don't think that's to do with like the system. I think it's something to do with the individuals are not delivering at the moment for us. Like, we create chances, we're creating opportunities, and we should have won the game yesterday with the opportunities that we did create. The chance for Jesus should be scored. The Partey header should be scored. Martinelli should be onside. That's 4 opportunities, including the goal that we did score, that should see Arsenal home and dry in this game and comfortably winning. And we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But it's just, we are so blunt at the moment, and that's a worry. Last word from you, Chris, on this.
Okay, yeah. Now this is going to be a question. Do you think we don't need a Vito Osimhen? Because one of the things we're lacking up front center forward is a transition monster and a bully. Teams has figured that if you come right at Arsenal, you are going to get it. You're going to get whipped 5, 6. So they set up either a mid block or a low block against us. Now we need something more of an option, a bully. Somebody who's in there and then he's dragging out players wide, not just necessarily with your technical skills, but then this guy is going to bully your way through. He's not going to he's going to go for the for the headers. is going to go right for everybody. Look at that ball that Jesus was supposed to go for. If that was Victor Osimhen, he's going right into it. And why I appreciate a Victor Gyökeres very well, but then in an Arsenal setting and against the kind of teams we play that set up against us, I don't think a Victor Gyökeres will do us much good in certain games. For instance, like Fulham yesterday. So what's your take on that, Tom?
I think that, my position on Osimhen is not anything to do with necessarily like me thinking he's bad or he think he is a poor player. Osimhen's clearly a very good striker. He's delivered goals on a consistent basis at those levels. The issue for me with the striker scenario is that when Arsenal go for that striker, I want it to be who I think is going to be the best option for Arsenal to get. So that it's not like when we signed Giroud. It's not like when we signed Jesus. It's not like when we signed Havertz to a degree, that we're signing these players for big money in the context of the seasons that we signed them. And we're looking at the market and going, actually, there was somebody better. Like I look at Isak and I think I'd rather have Isak. I look at Gyökeres, as you highlighted, I'd rather have Gyökeres right now than Osimhen. I don't want Arsenal to go into the market and sign the second or third or fourth choice for me in that position, because I think it's such an important player for us to add to our team that for me, if there is somebody better that you can get, I want us to go and get that player. I think that it's the only other time I'll use that phrase of raise our standards, because I think that we need in that centre forward position, we absolutely need to go and get the best that's on offer. Because if we don't, we're going to be always thinking about what could have been. Now, if Arsenal sign Osimhen, I sincerely hope that he proves to be, in the end, the best option. And I'll be backing him all the way to try and do that, because that's what I will do as a fan for my Arsenal teammate. So when I'm looking at that position, I just want the best. I think what you say about Osimhen is absolutely fair. And I think that he would offer, plenty. I think he would probably be doing a better job right now than we're currently seeing from our centre forward options right now. But when it comes to actually making that signing, I want to see the best. And I'm not willing to compromise really at the moment on the best. And I just think there are better players out there. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I agree with that.
Lovely stuff. Chris,
thank you so much, Tom.
It's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you wearing a December Advent calendar shirt of a different.
Yes. I'm following the trend. I'm with you on that.
Lovely stuff. Appreciate it, man. Speak to you soon. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your day.
At ease.
Lovely stuff. Fantastic stuff from Chris there. Two good calls. TJR, hopefully, he's up next if he turns his camera on. Give him a couple of seconds. There he is. Lovely stuff. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Oh, yeah. The usual.
Oh, yeah. Doing great, man. Tell me what you're feeling. Where's your head at?
Bit pissy. So I opened my notes and I realized that I opened notes from a game maybe 2 years ago where we were complaining about Nketiah and the systems that we're running, and it seems we're plotting in the same place. My issue with the game yesterday was Fulham tactics-wise, they compress the middle of the pitch.
Yes.
And if we are a kind of complete team, we're the kind of team where, so Odegaard, Saka, they're going to do their thing, and then we offer very little other threat when it comes to sort of robust attacking defensive players, if that makes sense. So they've got Sanderberg and they've got Iwobi who's playing on the counter. Smith Rowe didn't really offer much, but it was pretty much, I don't see how that wasn't a game for Moreno. That was absolutely, he's a physical guy. You put Rice at 6, you put Moreno ahead of him, and they both sit and go with the same flexible midfield that Fulham have. And you try and win the middle of the pitch, condense, and then Martinelli or whoever goes around the edges. It's pretty simple stuff. It almost happened. And the other thing...
Well, who was it who played the pass out to the left-hand side when we created the chance at the end for Martinelli to cross in? It was a really good pass from Mikel Moreno inside on the spin to the left-hand side, which then saw the ball eventually get to Martinelli. I think it's a really fair point. Everyone's talking about left-back, and I get it. I know why people are talking about left-back yesterday or why Miles Lewis-Skelly. I can't really get on board with that, because I still think we conceded the goal that we conceded because we conceded an almost identical goal against Liverpool with Lewis-Skelly and Kivior as our left-sided defence. So I don't think that necessarily stops that. And I don't necessarily think that Lewis-Skelly coming into the team at left-back, who is a midfielder for starters. He's played left back for us because that's the way he's found his pathway into the team at the moment, but is ostensibly a midfielder. I don't think that really changes things hugely, that suddenly Havertz is being better and suddenly Trossard is better and suddenly Ødegaard is sharper. But I think Mikel Moreno's addition to the midfield is a point that potentially could have changed things slightly more.
It makes everything more solid, and I've forgotten what I was going to say now. There's the defense side, that's one thing. Kivior gets beaten on runs where he has to run back. He's obviously not as mobile as other defenders, but we've also got, 4 fullbacks out or 5 fullbacks out. So if we're wanting to sign another one, we're going to have to, this is probably my next point, who are we getting, who's going out? Is Trossard both forward and, in areas of need? Like, we're going to need a backup keeper. I'd like the Spanish guy, Veres or whatever his name is. That'd be on a free. That's fine. And then forward, you're probably getting rid of one of, maybe 2 of Trossard, Jesus, or Martinelli. And that's realistically Sterling. I think I told you this last time we were talking. We're two attacking people short. And I'd like a utility forward. And obviously then we'll sign the striker that isn't Gabriel Jesus and who offers an attacking threat.
That is the thing, is that we shouldn't be, we are too short, and I agree with you, but we shouldn't be, because Jesus should be doing far more than he is, because we know what we've seen from him and we know what he is capable of, and the fact that he's not showing it is obviously a massive frustration. And Martinelli, you could argue again, is another one that should be, and he's capable of doing far more than he currently is. That's what's frustrating for us, is that we look at that and go, we're XYZ players short, but the players that we have, we know are better than this. So why are they not performing is then the question. So I guess that's got to be it.
You can also talk yourself into long-term. Gabriel Jesus will play on the wing, and Martinelli should be moving into those inside forward areas. And he's just not developed in that way at all, because that's on paper the way it should work. But then, I think last time we were talking about transfers and stuff, it's like, who are you bringing in? I wanted the 2 Turkish lads. So Kadioglu, who's been okay at Brighton, and he would have been the utility guy that can fill in, and he would have been the guy that would have been at left back. And then Semi Kirk, however you say his last name that I can't Kirksale, something that's got one of those
not Kokchu,
Kokchu, yeah.
Oh, is it Kokchu? Orkun Kokchu.
No, that's the midfielder who's in Feyenoord. No, he's at Besiktas, and he's sort of he's not a number 9, but he's a guy who kind of does some Aguero-y things where he runs at people and either gets fouled or makes them make decisions where they fall over effectively. And he's a guy I would have liked. I would have liked Kubo at Sociedad.
Yeah.
He's a lovely play. Probably would have cost too much. Omarodian is another guy that's...
He's gone back to Porto.
He's interesting. Osman, whether we could have somehow finagled a loan for him instead of Sterling would have been lovely. But Ferguson's the guy that I'd like in short term. Long term, probably not. We're not, in a fantasy world where, say, we offer Brighton a 2-year loan, and at the end of it, it's a ridiculous figure. So it's 80 million, 80 plus, something like that. But all the things that need to be met are up there. Like, he needs to score a certain amount of goals. He needs to play a certain amount of games. I think in theory, they're slowly moving away from Ferguson because of injury stuff. And they've always got 2 or 3 in the pipeline. I think that'd be short term, what I wouldn't mind doing in January. We're not going to find, Isaac in the...
No, I don't think so.
Xavi Simons would be lovely, but that's not going to happen.
That's why I think we need to go for the player that's the next one. I think we need to find the attacker, the versatile attacking player that's going to offer more for us in those positions. So I look at Adam Odelookman personally as that player for me right now. If it's possible, I think it would be Spenny, but I don't know how Spenny it would be to get him through the door. I'll be interested about that.
Is he kind of, my issue with him, I've seen him in big games. Is he kind of at his ceiling? Is he
he scored a hat-trick in the Europa League final. It's a pretty big game.
Yeah, no, I saw that. That's probably a big game, yeah. Is he kind of a dribbly guy that might not fit as well as what we're thinking. Is Arsenal the kind of club where you've got Saka, who's got all the physical attributes and the technical attributes. Is Lookman going to duplicate that, but then be worse? Is he going to get found out somehow? I think Serie A, there's not a lot of attackers
You could say that about any player, though, couldn't you? Like, you could say that about any player that you sign. Every player that you sign is going to be a risk. Any player that you sign is playing in a different league. Ultimately, they come with different challenges. That's why I always lean slightly towards Isak in terms of the striker debate, because I know what I'm seeing from him in the Premier League. So it makes a lot of sense. And obviously, Arsenal have got a lot of success over the last 4 years by our recruitment strategy changing to make it more accessible to more Premier League proven players. You look at the players that we've signed in the team, be that, Ben White, be that Leandro Trossard, be that Declan Rice, be that Jorginho, be that David Raya. We're getting success from players, Kai Havertz, of course, as well, that have already got experience in the Premier League that don't need that transition. So there's always a risk, and that's why I do lean towards slightly. And I like this shout from DJ. Like, Mbeumo in January is an interesting option. The only issue with Mbeumo is obviously he's more right side skewed. So I think he'd be a great backup to Saka and potentially a great replacement actually for Jesus. I think he'd be a really good Jesus replacement. My issue is that in January, I think we need someone who can skew to the left a bit more to cover that side and potentially even start certain games. But if you told me that Mbeumo was signing in January, I wouldn't have a problem with that, at all. Absolutely. I think it'd be a good deal.
Likewise, all the numbers everyone loves, all the number boffins everyone loves Mbeumo. He's probably the most underrated forward outside of the big six, and he'll get snapped up in a matter of time.
Yeah, Newcastle being linked with at the moment. But TJ, always a pleasure to chat with you.
No
Thank
worries.
you so much for calling in.
No worries, mate. Have a good one.
You too. I'll speak to you soon. See you later, mate.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Lovely stuff. Wilson's up next. How you doing, Wilson? You good, Joel? How you doing? Take yourself off mute. There we go. Lovely
Morning,
stuff.
Tom. Morning,
Mate. How are you?
Very frustrated, to be honest with you. Very frustrated because everyone knows that I think the Merseyside derby was postponed due to the storms. Yeah. Liverpool didn't play. They were resting their legs up. In my view, this was a massive opportunity for Arsenal to capitalize on that situation by getting the job done, and we failed, and we didn't. And this player, oh my word, Martinelli, Jesus Christ, like his decision making in the final third is awful. And this is not the first time, Tom. Remember in the Manchester United game and other games as well, he couldn't even take on the player once. Like, come on.
Why has that happened, though, Wilson? Because, as I say, we talked about how in 22-23, this is a guy that got 15 goals and 5 assists. So what's happened? Why has he regressed to the point that he's at now?
I think there's a few factors to this, because I think his confidence is through to the floor. His confidence
why,
is
though?
through.
Why?
I think...
And if you don't know, that's fine. But I think it's worth asking the question.
I mean, to be honest, I think when Granit Xhaka was there, his link up with Martinelli benefited him massively. But since he's left,
is this a Declan Rice problem then? So is Declan Rice not doing something?
Well, it could. I mean, I can't. You know that I love Declan Rice, but the fact of the matter is, I don't know. It could be. I don't think Martinelli's found the right midfield partner that links up with him. That's one reason, really. But his confidence, Tom, is just through to the floor.
Oh, I've lost connection. Wilson, sorry, I'm losing audio on my end. It's not you. It's definitely me. Don't worry about you. Keep talking for a second. I'm just going to try and sort it out.
I was just saying that. I feel like Martinelli's confidence is through to the floor. He's not the same player as he was, as you said, 22, 23 season. And I think the link up, that lack of link up between that midfield partner and Martinelli has affected him. And Kivior, what on earth was he doing for the goal we conceded? He was switched off. And I feel like we missed Gabriel massively yesterday. If Gabriel was there, we wouldn't have conceded that goal. It's annoying.
I hear what you're saying, Wilson. Well, I don't hear what you're saying, but I'm sure it was really, really good. I'm going to let you go now, and I'm going to refresh my stream up and come back, which I'm sure usually fixes this problem. But thank you, Wilson, for your time, mate. I really appreciate it. Thank you, mate. Pleasure as always. Thank you, son. Right, I'll be back in 2 seconds. I'm just going to refresh my StreamYards, and hopefully that'll fix the problem. Fingers crossed. It usually does. Okay, hopefully we're back. I'm testing the speakers in StreamYards and it seems to be working. So let's get Benny on the call and really see if my microphone or headphones are working. Benny, how you doing, mate? You good? You well? Take yourself off mute.
Yeah. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm good, mate. I can't hear you. Lovely stuff. Okay, we're back. We're fixed. Yeah, tell me where your head's at, mate.
Where my head is at now is better than where it was immediately after the match.
Me too.
Actually, I had the game on, and I think 5 minutes before, I turned it off. And then I saw on the BBC website Saka had scored, and then I turned the stream back on, only for it to be ruled out for offside. So I was livid. I think at this time, it's going to be very, very. I know it's just after the game. Everybody is emotional, but at the moment, I'm not seeing a pathway for Arteta to win the Premiership. I think I'm going to be. When he came in, I was very I was trusting the process, but honestly, I don't think he will have a better chance at winning the Premiership when City is at thundering now. Next season, I don't expect Pep or City to be at this where they are now. So if he doesn't,
well, ironically, the problem is that Liverpool have kind of just replaced City at the moment.
So. But I think in my heart of hearts, if I'm honest with myself, and I'm not saying he's a bad manager. I'm not saying we should sack him. I'm just saying I really don't see a pathway for him to win if he can't win it when City are at the lowest, then when can he win it?
The question we've got to ask is Arsenal under Arteta capable of getting 90 plus points, which they haven't done, so far. And Liverpool at the moment on their current points tally are tracking towards a 95-point season based upon what they've got so far, which obviously would have saw them win the league, even if Man City were as good as they were last season. And I think just looking back at 22-23, it would have seen them win the league, the last 2 seasons, let alone just last season as well. And if we go back a season before that, it also would have seen them win the league over City in 21-22, when they finished on 93 points. So that's actually how impressive Liverpool have been this season, is they're tracking at a points tally that's higher than the last 3 seasons that would have seen them win the title. So, and that's happened because of a number of reasons. One, obviously, is they've faced a Man City side without Rodri, and obviously they won very comfortably. They played Man City at very different points to the point that we played them. They have injury-wise, yes, they've lost Alisson, yes, they've lost Jota, but the squad in itself has just been and is able to cope with things far better. The question mark, I think, is not necessarily Liverpool, is actually having a look at how Arsenal are comparing to, say, Chelsea at the moment, and why Chelsea are able to do what they're doing right now, and why Chelsea are currently 2 points ahead of Arsenal. And Tom, the irony again, just quickly, Benny, before you come, I know that you come on this, is that the ironic thing about kind of the Chelsea thing is that again they're doing what they're doing with a coach at the moment that none of the people who wanted Arteta gone would ever have appointed, as Arsenal manager. So, and that's the same for Slot at the same time. So there's this kind of irony and in some ways contradiction around kind of that managerial side of things. But why is it that this season is going the way it is for, say, Arsenal and Chelsea and Liverpool is the bigger question?
I think Chelsea are very, very fortunate with the squad they have. They have the ability to have a squad where they can change up players with very, very near enough the same quality. Yeah. So you're having players like, when is it Noni?
Noni Madueke, yeah.
Yeah, Madueke. If he drops to the bench, they can bring in Neto,
Yep.
or they can bring in like a like for like replacement.
Yeah. If you look at the forwards that they've got, which is it's mad, you've got attacking players. Cole Palmer is probably the best player in the Premier League right now, alongside Mohamed Salah, in just how good he has been. You've got a player that cost them well over 50 million, I think, in terms of release clause in Christopher Nkunku, who they can bring in as well. They've got 100 million euros, and I know a player that has not been great in Mihajlo Mudryk, but it's a player that cost them 100 million euros. You've got Jadon Sancho in the team, of course, who before his absolute mess at Man United was considered one of the best players in Europe at Borussia Dortmund at that time. You've got Pedro Neto, who cost them well over 50 million quid. You've got Noni Madueke, that cost them well over, I think, close to 40 million pounds when he signed. Joao Felix, of course, as well in the squad this season. And Nicholas Jackson, who's finally started to come good in what he's doing. And not only that, but you've got £250 million worth of midfielders in Enzo Fernandez, Romeo Lavia, Moises Caicedo, in the team. And it's just like, when you start to go, why are Chelsea doing what they're doing? Well, it's because actually, even though we've laughed at them for their recruitment, eventually you can throw enough, at a wall, some of it's going to stick. And now it's starting to stick. So,
and I think similar for Liverpool. Liverpool is also, they've been very, very lucky with injuries to their main players. They've had like a really good squad that has like, I'm still waiting for one of their main players to like fall out, like one of our players. But that is I guess that is what happens. I think another point people have raised, which I totally agree with, is just the drop off in our subs, like the gap between Gabriel Saliba and then Kivior. It's just so evident to see, and I think this is one of the things that might get Arteta the boot finally, because his faith in some of these players. I would have got rid of Kivior this summer and brought in another centre back. Yes, Calafiore is there, and we appreciate him. But
that's the thing, is they kind of did bring in the Calafiore. They brought in Calafiore, and he's not been available.
Tom, we still have Tomiyasu at the club. We still have Kivior at the club. Martinelli has been on a downward trajectory ever since last season. Trossard is and I agree with I think Turkish in Arsenal Fan TV called him the best 12th man ever, and I see him as a 12th man. I don't see him as ever as a starter. Every time he starts a game, he has very, very minimal impact. And unfortunately, these are some of the kind of like I know Mourinho, it's going to take time for Mourinho to bed in. I'm going to give Mourinho a chance. Havertz, I still think he's like, for the German national team, when he plays for Germany, he plays quite well. But it's when he drops too deep into when he plays for Arsenal, he seems to drop too deep.
Well, he's a second striker. He's that his best role is as a second striker. It's not as
sure, but he seems to play better for Germany.
Yeah, I agree. But I think when you've got players like Musiala and Florian Wirtz and Joshua Kimmich, obviously that is going to change things.
And that is the point. I still think we're so short. We are so short on quality that team.
Okay, let me ask this, Benny, because this is what you talk about, the Arteta, and you like, and this conversation comes up. If we are so short, and if you think we are still needing so many players, and yet we continue to compete, we continue to be where we are, both things cannot exist. And both things are, one, we are so short and we need loads more quality. The other is the manager.
I don't think loads, though.
Well, if you think we're so short, we must need quite a bit more. You've talked about needing to replace Kivior, needing to replace Martinelli, needing to replace Havertz, needing to replace Tomiyasu. Like,
not Havertz. I would keep Havertz. I would definitely keep Havertz. I think like people have said, I think it's 2-3 players we need, but I still think we need to be more ruthless. If we want to be a title challenging team, we need to give the impression that we adhere, because the way we played, especially the way we lined up against Fulham, where we had Partey at right back, and the way the team executed, it wasn't good enough. It needs to kind of have more urgency for a team that wants to win the title, because for majority of that game, there was a lot of passing to the defenders, passing back, and there was no kind of more forward intent to try and move to the wings, to try and move it into the. And I'm sure, like, the possession stats, I'm sure Saliba and Kivio had the ball the most. If or they were like up there in having like most touches of the ball, because we kept passing the ball in amongst ourselves. We need to kind of have this more urgency as a team that wants to win the title, for me.
Fair enough. No, I think yesterday there was a lack of urgency. There was a lack of directness. There was a lack of the use of the central areas, and there is a reliance on the wide areas in particular for Arsenal. And I think there's something about this is why I really want to see Declan Rice move to the 6. It's not because I don't think he's a good 8. I think he's a good 8. I just don't think he's a world-class 8. And I think that he can be a world-class 6. And I think in that position, what he can do is going to be, you know, in the future, great. But that left 8 was obviously, we brought in Mika Moreno. And as TJR talked about earlier in the show, like we've missed him for the majority of the season because of injury, which has allowed him a real challenge to try and transition. But he comes onto the field, plays one pass out to the left-hand side, which gets to Martinelli, puts him in a position to cross, and we score. Yes, it's offside, but one moment for Moreno doing something that Rice hadn't done up to that point, and it is something to do with about kind of the left-footed side, you know. And having a left footer on that left hand side, like we did with Xhaka when Xhaka was there, and I think the link to Martinelli is interesting. And I'd be interested to see if Martinelli and Moreno, if they were able to play like a number of games together, how that partnership might evolve. But I think that you're right in saying that we're 2 or 3 short, and I think that in January we have to sign another attacker, and I think in the summer we have to then sign for me, that centre forward as well. And it's not about getting rid of Havertz or replacing Havertz. It's about having somebody that's with Havertz, that's, you know, gives Havertz the ability to play, in my opinion, his best role, which could be a second striker. It means you could play Havertz and Odegaard together in a different type of partnership than they played when he first came in. It wasn't suited to Havertz because we didn't have the centre forward at that time that I think would be more beneficial for a player like Havertz. And then you need to look at the left-hand side for me, because Martinelli is a big question mark. He's a big, as I have said on numerous occasions and talked about this in the whole point with Trossard at that point as well. As you said, he's probably one of the best 12th man that you can have. And that's why you keep the best 12th man in your team, but replace the 11th man, which at the moment is Martinelli in that side. I think you need to look at the defence still, and we need to obviously look at having depth in the number 6 position if Partey is to leave in the summer. Also, Jorginho leaving as well, we expect too. So there's a lot that needs to be done, but I don't think that we can just let January pass us by, because if we do, it's a huge missed opportunity. And I don't think we have any excuses. But Benny, any quick final thoughts before we wrap up?
One final thought that I would be interested in your take. Most of Martinelli's best games this season has been when Calafiori has been fit.
Yes.
And I am still kind of not willing to write him off totally, because every time Calafiori has been fit, it seems to free up some space for him to kind of go one-on-one with the fullback. I think when he faces 2 guys at the same time, so he faces 2 defenders where they are constantly on him. I think this is where he struggles. I think he could still be kept in the squad. Unless a big offer comes for him. But I think we can upgrade in that position. But it's really interesting to see that when Calafiori is fit, a true left-sided defender, it seems that Martinelli has his best game. So I wonder if there's something in there. But yeah, I think I agree with most of what you mean.
And just on Calafiori, of all the games he started, the only games we haven't won when he started is Man City away, which obviously he scored in, and Bournemouth away, which we went down to 10 men after 30 minutes. They're the only games we haven't won when Calafiori has started, which shows you kind of the importance to him in this team.
He does. I really like him. He does, even though sometimes he's a bit sloppy, he does add an extra dimension to our game. He comes forward. It's like a ball playing center back, where he actually comes forward with the ball and he wants to beat his man. He wants to create space. So he is a big miss for me in that team, because I think the way Arteta was trying to kind of rejig the defense is to have this ball play winning center back who comes forward, beats man and creates more space, and who is also very, very comfortable on the ball and can invert as well. So, yeah, I think it's a big miss for us. Well, but like I said, just a message to the Gooners. Let's keep up the faith. We have Monaco in the week, and let's hope for.
Hey, look, you win that game, you win against Everton, you win against Palace, and suddenly the mood's very different. So let's just wait and see what happens. Benny, thank you, mate, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom, for doing this morning.
Of course, man. No problem. We've got time for 2 more quick calls, and they will have to be quick because I said I'd be off by 9, but I'll stretch it a little bit. We've got Nick up first, and then Joey's going to finish off the phone in. Nick, how you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Morning, Tom, mate. Not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, fella. Not bad. Tell me where your head's at.
I think the league was lost in the summer.
Okay.
When our only attacking signing was Sterling, I think that was it. And I said at the time, we're not going to compete because you can't. I don't think you can win the league if you don't have a game-changing player. And I know Saka is a game changer, but he's not our Aguero.
Yeah.
He's not our Haaland. He's not our Salah yet. And I think until we get a player like that, we're not going to win the league.
Who would you have signed is the magic question. So
it is the magic question, and I don't know.
Well, this is the thing. Is that I can agree. I think that what we did in the summer enough to guarantee that you beat at that time our mindset
Definitely
was
not.
at that time Man City? And the answer to that question is probably not. Like we needed to improve the left-hand side, and we did that obviously with the signings we made, and we've suffered some really bad luck with the injuries to Calafiori and Marino this season. But we absolutely needed to add more firepower, and we didn't do that. But my issue with the whole, we didn't do enough in the summer is that my question is who was that guy? Because
I get what you're saying. My response to that would be at least somebody who pushes the needle a bit more than Sterling. Because let's face it, Sterling is washed. So at least somebody who's going to push the needle a little bit more than that. And I think that could have been possible. I mean, I think this summer was basically the equivalent of when Wenger went out and just signed Czech.
The issue I've got with that point is that I feel as though that was more of a choice in that summer. Is that actually I point the finger at Wenger a lot in that summer because we could have done more and didn't. Whereas I look at this summer and think that if, say, we signed Sterling on loan in July or the start of August, horrendous, right? Absolutely unforgivable signing. But the fact that Sterling came in the last seconds of deadline day, I think is telling about the state of the window in terms of attacking options. There was clearly an intent to want to sign an attacker, but in the end, it happened to be Sterling because the players that they liked, Nico Williams, of course, being the key one, had no intention of leaving Athletic Club, and the only time he was going to leave was, of course, for Barcelona. Benjamin Šeško was the other attacking name that came up. Despite what people think about him wanting to stay at RB, it turned out that it was a lot to do with the fact that his main issue was that he wanted to deal with his future before the Euros, and he wanted a kind of a resolution before the Euros, and Arsenal weren't willing to make a decision because they hadn't moved Nketiah on by that point in the window, so they weren't really going to go and spend £55 million when they knew they had other business to do in other key areas also. So I just think the window, while I agree with you, is one of the big reasons why we're not as competitive as why we would want to be. I just think there's a lot of explanations as to why it went the way that it did.
I think you're being too kind to the board. I get what you're saying, but I think we have a history of always just coming short, and it's always, we tried, but we couldn't. And for me, I get what you're saying. Buying him right at the end, literally at the 11th hour, shows that, we tried everything we could and ultimately we had to do something. I see the other side of that, and I think you botched the summer and panic bought. And it's really frustrating. Really frustrating.
The comeback to that I would have is that if you think that they botched it, I need more than I don't know when I ask the question of who would you have signed.
That's fair enough. But if I knew, I'd be probably on the Arsenal board. But I get what you're saying. That's fair enough.
I think the other point is that I always look at what the other teams in our bracket are doing in the window. And so Liverpool signed Chiesa, and that's it, who's barely played. They wanted to sign Zubimendi and couldn't. And then you look at Man City, they brought in Savinho, who's already been on their books for 2 years at the City Football Group, and of course brought back Gooner. So as clubs in that bracket, the business for those teams, again, just it wasn't for me. There's loads of evidence to suggest it wasn't there. And even then, we went out and signed 2 players that were, for me, upgrades on our left-hand side in Calafiori and Merino, but we've been hit by some really bad misfortune in terms of their availability.
Definitely. But arguably, somebody else could say, well, Liverpool and City already had the attacking firepower. So they didn't have a glaring omission where we did. So, you know, in my opinion, I think every Arsenal fan was going, sign a bloody striker. And we ended up with Sterling.
Well, I think that City lost Alvarez, who was a really big piece of their firepower and was scoring 20-plus goals, and they've replaced him with a player that scored no goals so far, you know, this season. So I think that there are. I think Nick, we've had a really good discussion, kind of back and forth, of showcasing 2 different viewpoints without it devolving into abuse and Twitter.
No, absolutely. Can I ask you? I know you wanted to finish at 9. Can I ask you a really quick question?
Yeah, go for it, mate.
And because I honestly don't know the answer to this. At what point do you start to question Arteta? And I'm not questioning him yet, but at what point do you start to think, what do we do?
Yeah, I think I've been very clear on this one, which is like I said that he's earned this contract. And I said in this contract, between now and its conclusion, he has to deliver a title or a Champions League. And if he doesn't deliver a title or a Champions League, I think what it shows is that he's taken us as far as he can. That's my position on him as a manager. I think that, you know, you give someone so much time and they progress, but obviously you do reach a point where you've reached kind of a pinnacle. And if you're not if you're not going that one step further, then you have to start looking. So that for me is this contract is the contract where he has to deliver a title or a Champions League.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I really appreciate your call.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, pal. Lovely stuff. We've got time for one more, and I did say I'd get Joey on, and then I'm really going to have to shoot. Joey, thank you for being patient, mate. I really appreciate it. Tell me what you're thinking.
Thank you for having me on.
No problem.
I'm thinking the season is not over, as a lot of people are saying it is. We're in December now. We have had a tough stretch of games. I think the big problem is on our defensive side, to be honest. Also with it has been talked about already. The dynamics on the left-hand side. I don't think there is any chemistry right now, because there was a stretch where Calafiori and Merino started, and I think with Martinelli on that side, that looked pretty good. But Calafiori has been injured. I think Merino played like 20-25 minutes yesterday, so I just think there's a lack of chemistry on that side. It's always different players behind Martinelli. And Martinelli himself has not been good enough, for sure. But I think that also the mix-up every game, it's not helping him. It's not helping him to get into a rhythm.
Yeah, I mean, Moreno started 3 games so far this season. The first game he started in the league was obviously the defeat at Bournemouth that we went down to 10 men after 30 minutes. The other game was the 2-2 with Liverpool that he scored in. And then the other game was the 3-0 win over Nottingham Forest, which ironically was not with Martinelli, but was with Trossard on that left-hand side. And Calafiori did start that game at left back. But that's the only game we've really seen those two be able to start the game together. Calafiori didn't start against Liverpool because he was injured. We've not seen Calafiori and Merino play together enough. We saw them play together once in our Nottingham Forest game, which we were really dominant and created loads of chances. And we saw them start away together at Bournemouth, where obviously there's loads of caveats to that entire display that, again, didn't have Odegaard, didn't have Saka, and we went down to 10 men. So it's so frustrating that we've invested 70-odd million quid on our left-hand side in those 2 players, and we've just not been given the opportunity to see that utilization of those 2 because of circumstances. You heard a lot what Nick had to say a second ago, obviously, as well. And he points to the summer. And while I have a kind of a differing view and perhaps a more broader view of around kind of the reasons as to why what happened in the summer happened, where do you kind of sit on that, and how much finger pointing should there be at the club for not doing more?
It's difficult to say, because we have problems in defense also, because there are a lot of injuries right now, especially with Gabriel, of course, is a freak injury because he got punched in the face by Fabianski, I think. So it's not going to happen multiple times. But there were holes to fill on the defensive side as well, and with financial fair play, with the FFP rules, I think we can point fingers that there hasn't been made any improvements made on the left side or on the striker.
Yeah.
But then again, if we would have bought in like Isak for 100 million or something like that, then we wouldn't have had the money to spend on Calafiori and Merino. Then we would have the holes there. So it's like a pick your poison type. Yeah,
it is, and I don't think Isak was even available for 100 million. In the last summer window either. And that's the thing. It's like I agree with the point of view that we needed to do more in the summer. The issue that I've got is that I don't think it would necessarily as capable of being able to be done. And I think that's evident by whenever you ask people, as I did with Nick, as I did with, and I do with others, is who. That usually the response is either somebody that wasn't available, or the answer is it's not my job. The club need to do that. And while that's a fair response, it also is telling, I think, as well.
I think there aren't many options out there that are realistic for Arsenal to get. I think the right-hand dynamics work pretty well. I'm also not worried about the majority of our offense coming through the right-hand side with Saka and Ødegaard. They are our best players in the offensive side, so I don't mind that. But we have to maximize the left-hand side. And centrally, I'm not too concerned with Havertz right now. He hasn't played very well recently, but he has had good stretches. So I think he will come back to form. But with Martinelli, I'm more concerned.
Yes, I agree. I think that of the attacking players, Martinelli is definitely the biggest concern that we've got. That's without a doubt. Joey, thank you for being patient, first of all, and for jumping on and giving your thoughts. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and have a good start to the day.
Indeed. Have a good day, mate. Speak to you soon. Lovely stuff. And that finishes off today's phone and show and our reaction. Thank you so much, as always, for listening and tuning in. It is incredibly appreciated. I hope that you have a fantastic Monday. I've got to shoot off. I've got a very busy day today, so thank you for that. And I will be, of course, I do see obviously a lot of people talking about Chelsea and about Enzo Maresca and people talking about phases. None of those people phoned in, for the record. They rarely ever do. I'd love to have a conversation with those people, because I'd love to know if Enzo Maresca or Arne Slot were on their radar of managers that they wanted to replace Arteta in the summer, because when they were whining on about the likes of Ancelotti and so on, it wasn't those players either. It was more young managers with little experience coming in and doing good jobs with those teams, despite obviously having far more resources than Arsenal do. But I long for a day where one of those people comes in. But they just don't seem to phone in. Have a fantastic Monday. Have a fantastic start to your week. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.